And welcome everyone to another edition of Masonic Light Talk. I'm your host, Past Master Rod Funderburk of Bivouac Lodge number 503. We are hailing from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we are a part of the 30th District, where our Worshipful Master is Brother Keyshawn L. Allen, and our District Deputy is Terry Andrews. And of course, our fearless leader of the North Carolina jurisdiction is our Most Worshipful Grand Master, Daniel D.T. Thompson. As we always let you know, the true purpose of Masonic Light Talk is to give the craft a chance to see the individuals that are behind the various titles within Masonry. And of course, we want you to be able to see that they're just regular people like you and myself, and they have good things, they have bad things, and they have ugly things sometimes that happen in life. And of course, I always hear people say, well, what are Masons all about? And we want to make it clear that when people ask that question, we want you to know that we are here to make good men better. We're not here to take a bad man and make them good or anything like that, but we're here to take good men and make those good men better men in the community, in their family, in their church, and in their everyday lives. And of course, for those of you who are beginning to follow us, we've been trying to include as many houses inside of Masonry as we can inside the North Carolina jurisdiction. So if there's any house that you would like to know about or you'd like to see an interview on, please just let us know, and we will do as much as we can to get that episode on here for you. And of course, this evening we have a very, very special guest joining us here on Masonic Light Talk. He is a former Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of North Carolina jurisdiction. And he is none other than past Grand Master Marvin Chambers. Past Grand Master, welcome to Masonic Light Talk. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and be with us and gracing us with your presence. Welcome. And how are you doing this afternoon?
I am as good as gold and 3 times as precious, Brother Funderburk. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to share these few moments with you and the brethren of the world as well as North Carolina. Thank you so very much.
Yes, sir. And thank you for being here. And of course, past Grand Master Chambers, it has been almost 20 years since you have been the Grand Master of this great jurisdiction. And of course, you know, there are a lot of younger brothers who have joined since then. And I'm sure they have no clue as to who you are, those younger brothers. So if you would enlighten them on who you are, and just take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Well, first, I'm a brother and a Mason. Secondly, my name is Marvin D. Chambers. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, born and reared here, went to school here, used to travel, well, not travel very much, but the school that I went to was Stevens Lee High School, where we used to come to Winston-Salem, Charlotte, Greensboro, and around. And those persons who have been around a long time can remember the Stevens Lee Bears, who were really treacherous on the football field as well as the basketball field. I'm sure they'll take that very lightly.
Sounds like you were one of those superstars.
Well, we used to run the old single wing. How about that?
Okay, all right.
Long time ago. I used to be very fleeted on foot, but right now that's a long time ago. Being that as it may, I am married and we had 4 children, all of whom are grown, and they're not all gone, but they're grown.
Yes, sir.
You'll find that out later in life. I went to A&T and enjoyed my time there. I studied engineering at A&T, and I worked in the industry for some 30 some odd years, performing and doing the trade that I learned. I enjoyed my work. I enjoyed living. Right now I belong to Kenilworth Presbyterian Church, where I serve as a ruling elder. I have done a number of things in the community and working in a number of things. I believe that Masons should be a part of the community in which they live, and should exercise their leadership ability by trying to make things better for not just themselves, but for everybody. And by doing that, you have to be a part of the community, and people understand and know who you are and what you stand for. That's one of the key things that I found is extremely important, especially to me. I don't try to keep anything away from anybody. I think that when you look at life, life has a lot to offer. And when you share the experiences that you have with others, you will find that you will accomplish a great deal. I hope I've been able to answer that question for you.
Yes, sir. You've done a wonderful job. And I do appreciate that. And of course, Grandmaster, past Grandmaster Chambers, you know, your Masonic background is simply impressive. And of course, you have so many accolades inside the Masonic family till I'm not even going to try and get into all of them because that is just an episode that we'll have to do it another time because I know it will take a long time. I do want to get into you being the Grand Master of this great jurisdiction during the time that you served. And I would like for us to just for you to talk to us about how that calling came about. How were you able at whatever time that you decided to join Masonry, and has you moved along to where either something pushed you, the office called you, or whatever it was? How did you make your way to that Grand Master position?
No one really makes his way to the Grand Master. It's interesting. My Masonic career started at a time in my life, you know, you don't see very much of it now, but there were times when you would see the Masons in your particular town doing and being involved in various activities. And Prince Hall Day, St. John's Day, or any other or funerals. And I happen to have seen some Masons performing a funeral. And my seeing them, I saw people that are men who I knew in the community who were outstanding men in the community, but I never knew they were Masons until I saw them. Mm-hmm. And that was made a great impact on me and impression, because I saw people who were just ordinary people who were outstanding in their field, but yet they were doing things. So I said I would like to be one of those, but I didn't know how to do it. And I went to work. I was one of the first Black people to be hired in industry, in engineering in this area. And while I was working at this plant where I was working in the engineering office, one of the guys that came up to me, who happened to have been one of the custodians, and said to me, you know, it's interesting that you're here, but there's something that you need to be doing that's more important than what you're doing here. And I became inquisitive and I asked him, and he says, you ought to be a Mason. And so I said, what do I got to do? He says, well, you need to have an application and be recommended by someone. I said, well, I need an application. And so who do I get to recommend me? He said, well, I might do it. He didn't say he would. He said he might. And he did recommend me. And I did join Venus Lodge number 62 in Asheville. And I started working in Venus Lodge number 62. And I did become I've worked around the chairs. And interesting enough, at that time, they were very strict on making sure that you understood and knew Masonry. They trained me and made sure that I was well informed. Mm-hmm. And after that, I began to move around the chairs, and I became the Worshipful Master of Venus Lodge. Mm-hmm. And after becoming the Worshipful Master, I started going to the Grand Lodge. And at that time, going to the Grand Lodge was an entirely different than it is now. It was like going to a good old camp meeting. Everybody was glad to see everybody, and everybody was enjoying seeing everybody. wasn't a lot of politics involved in it.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of hell raising and all that. It was just people glad to see everybody.
Yes, sir.
And I became, and we were meeting in churches at that time, and I enjoyed it and got to know a number of the brethren from all over the jurisdiction. And from that point, in doing that, I was appointed by Bishop Shaw. Well, not Bishop Shaw and Clark S. Brown, who was the Grand Master at that time, to a position to work with on a minor committee. And from there, we moved on. One of the things that I do know and found is that I believe this, that the position should seek the man and not the man the position. And you can be in a group of 1,000 people, and if you have something to offer, somebody's going to see it and take it to where it should be, to ensure that you can obtain the insight that you need to get to where you need to get to, and they will try to help you get there. Usually when you try to go yourself, it always ends up in something destructive and not good. If you allow the position to seek you, you'll be all right, because God is still in charge and he will make the difference to help you get there. Those were the things that inspired me to become Masons. There were men at that time who Kemper Battle and Herbert Bell Shaw, Clark Brown, and a number of other men who were doing great things, and they were very impressive and set forth a good example to be followed. And I tried to do that, and that's what helped me to be involved in the Masonic order.
Yes, sir. I do remember Clark Brown, that name. I know my father had the pleasure of serving under him when he was a Mason and past master of Salem Lodge, number 139, some years ago. But past Grandmaster Chambers, I would like to ask, has one of the most elite 24 men who have had the privilege to serve as the Grand Master of this great jurisdiction, what was the number one thing in your mind that needed to be accomplished while you sat in the seat as Grand Master?
Well, that's a big question. And it makes me think, what would be the most thing? Well, there were a number of things that I was involved with, but one of the things that was most impressive to me, we had purchased a building, and of which we had no real way of paying for it, really, because we had not set forth any funds to try to take care of it. We had a building at one time in Durham, another building in Durham, and which had been sold, but there was no money to take care of it. But we did buy a building, and we bought the building, but we did not set any plans to take care of it. And it fell upon me to try to make sure that we took care of that, and yet at the same time maintain a relevance of brotherhood and peace and harmony within the craft, as well as educate our members, which then says, how do you do all that? But I had some good people working with me who said, we can do this. And the one thing that we needed to do was take care of this building. And the craft said, we're going to set forth a means by which to pay for it. And the craft came together, and we raised enough money in less than 9 months to pay for that building.
Oh, wow.
And we had a mortgage burning. Almost burned down the church doing it, but we did. And the building that is now the Grand Lodge headquarters was paid for. And it was done by the members of this craft because they came together and said, we want to do this. And it upset some, but the majority came together and did what was necessary. And we raised the money in less than 9 months, paid for the building, had a mortgage burning, and moved forward. That was, in my opinion, a big task. And it was good that we were able to do that. But the craft was able to do that. I didn't do it, the craft did it. And it was an accomplishment that when you look at it, it was said by many that we probably could not do it, but then the greater forces said we could, and we did do it. And I thank God that we were able to. And to maintain the kind of attitude and the Masonic fortitude to make sure that those things happen.
Well, I'm glad that you did, and congratulations on that feat. Because working with, any kind of organization or any group as a leader, you're going to have, those who can and those who won't, or those who will, and those who can't. And that is something that is huge. But I heard you just say something in your explanation that you had brothers come together and say, "Hey, we can do this." And of course, in any organization, one man can't do it all alone. You've got to have help. So my next question is, how did you go about making sure that you got the right people around you that could accomplish those goals, such as being able to obtain a building and pay for it in 9 months? How did you go about getting those people and convincing them, or even knowing and God showing you the light that those were the people you needed around you to make this accomplishment happen?
You said the right word. God showed me. He was the one that pointed out to me the people who could make that happen. It wasn't a Marvin Chambers thing. It was a North Carolina Prince Hall Grand Lodge thing, and the people who had the desire to make sure that we accomplished the objective. And in leadership, one of the things that's extremely important is that you have to be able to put forth in the minds of people a desire and give hope. Hope is the best thing. When you got hope, if you got hope, you can have faith. And if you got faith, you're going to accomplish whatever it is. But you got to have that. And God gives you that, but you got to use it in the right way to make it come true. And my grandmother years ago, and this is old folks talking in a sense, they would say, "Boy, you need to stay away from him. He's not any good. You stay away from him." "Well, Grandmama, you don't know him." "Yeah, I do know him." "Have you ever seen it?" "No, but I know he's not any good." And that's a God-given gift. Now, she didn't explain it that way, but that's a God-given gift. Everybody doesn't have that. God gives you that. Then some the more highly educated folk go off to school and they teach you, and they call it kinesiology and body language and all that stuff. See, but the old folks say it's a God-given gift, and it comes from him, and he tells you how to deal with people, because everything that you deal with and the people you deal with, they don't all have it, and you know who's got it and who hasn't. And if you put around you good people, you'll be okay. I'm not I don't know what your politics is, and it doesn't really matter about that. I'm into leadership. You read all the books about leadership and how to lead and what what it tells you. Peter Drucker says, leaders do things right. Managers do the right thing. Okay, so I got it backwards. Leaders do the right thing, managers do things right. So you got to know what to do and how to do, and you gain that through experience, and life teaches you that. Uh, you can do it numerous times, but if you don't know what you're doing and how you're doing it, you're going to be screwed up. Experience is always the best teacher, always.
Yes, sir. I've heard my father say that many, many times.
I have a thing up here on my. He says, "Good judgment comes from poor judgment. That in turn comes from experience."
Mhm.
And once you've encountered that, you will understand and know that. As your father told you, he wasn't lying.
That's right.
And sometimes
That's right.
old men would sit back, you see them sitting back and see you doing something, they wouldn't say a word. They just watch you.
That's right. You're exactly right. Grandmaster Chambers, I got another question for you on your responsibilities as Grandmaster. What do you think is the most difficult responsibility as a Grandmaster? And there are some things probably with me that come to mind, but I'm interested in knowing what you think one of the most difficult responsibilities that you had sitting as Grandmaster.
Well, being Grandmaster, many folks don't really understand. I shouldn't say don't understand. They may not truly understand the responsibility of a Grandmaster. As a Grandmaster, you are the doctor, lawyer, father, and Indian chief.
Mhm.
And you have to maintain all of those things in the right perspective.
Mhm.
And there are some things that you do, many may not understand, but it's always done for the benefit and the betterment of the craft.
Yes, sir.
And in order for that to happen, you have to make sure that you have a true connection. And see, this is always true with your God and your God with you,
Mhm.
because you have to maintain peace and harmony and make sure that your craft understands what peace and harmony is. Because there are times when it doesn't always prevail, and you got to maintain and try to get it back to where it does prevail. So the key to it is maintaining peace and harmony and the growth of your craft. That's the key thing.
I agree with that. That peace and harmony is so important with the craft, especially in an organization that doesn't really, give you anything as far as monetary and keeping up with your family and taking care of your family. It's all your energy. It's all your talent. It's even your funds and your money
That's
and
exactly
all
right.
your resources.
That's
So that
exactly
peace and
right.
harmony is so, so very important. Past Grandmaster Chambers, is there any advice that you would give to our next generation of Grand Lodge leaders? You've come through some tough times, and of course, things have changed with technology and things of that nature. What advice would you give to the next set of leaders that are coming up who will be leading this jurisdiction here in North Carolina? What advice do you have for them?
One of the key things that I would say is uh, brotherhood is the key. Brotherhood, not fraternity, not anything other than brotherhood. Who is my brother?
Yes, sir.
That's the key. And if you can understand that, knowing what brotherhood is and knowing who is my brother, you will be okay. Because see, uh, there are times when you do things because he is your brother.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes I heard an old wise man say to me once, said, having the right to do might not always be the right thing to do,
Yes, sir.
but you have to do what you got to do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And being being men who come into the Masonic teachings, if you as a member come into the Masonic order, and listen to the Masonic teachings and what your Bible teaches, man, there's no way you could screw up. No way. That's why when when it says to you, in whom do you put your trust? If you put your trust, that's right. Then there's no way you could fail.
That's
if
right.
you do that. If you do that, but you got to do that.
That's
See,
right.
You got to do it. If you don't do it, you'll screw up every time.
Yes, you will. Past Master Grant Chambers, you sound like one of those wise folks that can teach a lot to our upcoming generations coming in here. And Pastor Grandmaster Chambers, you know, we are running out of time here on Masonic Light Talk. But before we go, I just want you to tell everyone if there is something on your heart that we did not cover or something that you'd like to share with the craft and the people who are listening out there, anything on your heart that you would like to share before we get ready and close out.
The only thing I would say to craft, Brother Ferguson, Funderburk, excuse me, is that I love Masonry. I enjoy Masonry. Past Grandmaster William Clement said something one time, and it has stuck with me. And it said this: if you know you find your God, look for your God. You can't find him. But if you join the Masonic order, you'll find there are three things that are important: your God, your family, and the order. And if you join the order, you'll find all three.
All right. All right. That's
and
good advice.
And it's there, but you got to treat it as if it's there. It's precious.
Yes, it is. And you have to open that guidebook and study it and study those rules, don't you?
Yes, sir. And if you live it, if you live it, you'll find it.
Yes, sir. And others will see the light too, past Grandmaster Chambers.
That's right.
And that's what's important, is sharing that light with others, not only by words, but also in your actions and your brotherly love that you show for each other. Past Grandmaster Chambers, it has been a pleasure having you on this edition of Masonic Light Talk. You are so wonderful and so easy to talk to. And I want to congratulate you for all your accomplishments. And as we continue to move on in this environment where we are still dealing with COVID-19 and this new variant and this new strand, Past Grandmaster, please, you and your family, please continue to be safe as well as you can. Put mask on, vaccinate, anything that you feel that you need to do to stay safe. I hope and pray that you will do just that. So thank you for having us, or thank you for being on with us, Past Grandmaster. And as we get ready and close out, I want to say to the Prince Hall family out there, thank you for tuning in and listening to this edition of Masonic Light Talk, featuring the one and only Past Grandmaster Marvin Chambers, who has just been a delight to talk to. And for those of you out there who are not a part of the Masonic family, remember, it's not hard. In order to be one, just ask one. I'm your host, Past Master Rod Funderburk of Bivouac Lodge number 503. I can't wait to see you on the next edition of Masonic Light Talk. Until then, my brothers and sisters, please stay safe, be careful, and travel light.